This is Keyed In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
And I'm Brent Jackson.
Today we have Kira Epstein Begal from Washingtonian Properties. Kira is a third-generation Washingtonian. She grew up in Chevy Chase, Maryland. She attended school in Rockville. She's local like me. Awesome. And I don't know. Kira is she's one of the best agents that in the entire area that we know, right, Brent?
She's one of the best, I have to admit.
Yeah. So again, we're bringing in the heavy hitters. There's no slouching around here. So Kira, how many years have you been in the business now?
18.
18 years. Okay. And how did you get started in real estate?
So I never wanted to work 9 to 5, and I never wanted to sit at a desk. My oldest brother, I'm the youngest of 5, he said, why don't you go into real estate? I had no idea what I was getting into. I still don't really get it. But I started right after college. I actually got my license between junior and senior year of college. Mm-hmm. My goal growing up was always to work in a homeless shelter, and I volunteered in a homeless shelter. So my father jokes that I still help the homeless, just a different kind.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay.
So where did you start when you first got your real estate license? Like, which firm were you with?
So I was at Long and Foster. I started with an agent who I had known growing up. I knew her kids. And what I tell people is I was basically her assistant for free. So I did anything she needed just so I could learn. And then listings was my issue. Everybody knew I was 22 years old. Most of them knew me since I was a child. And so I would do anything. I'd bring her along. I'd share every commission. I kind of looked at the long-term plan versus the short-term.
Right.
You know, so she got half of everything I made, but I also got her 20 years of experience.
That's invaluable.
When you started out, was it just like, you were still just on commission though? Was there any?
No salary.
No salary.
So I was basically her free assistant and then commission.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're first starting out, again, similar to Max and some other guests we've had, do you have a local base of people you went to school with, friends, whatnot that you're pulling from to buy the house or to sell their parents' house?
So I'm third generation Washingtonian. I'm the youngest of 5. So my broker at Long and Foster said, if you send handwritten letters to 1,500 people telling them you're in real estate, I'll pay for your first mailing. So I literally went through my high school directory. My siblings,
how many?
friends.
1,500 is a lot.
1,500.
I don't
handwritten.
I don't even still know 1,500.
I did it in a month.
Nice.
And I had little cards that say Long and Foster, and then I put my business card and just said, "Hope you're doing well. I wanted to let you know I've started a new career in real estate." And I mailed them to my siblings, their friends, their parents, their grandparents, everybody I knew, all over. And most were here, but college friends,
sure.
Anybody.
Anything materialized from that?
Yeah, what happened?
And this career.
The whole entire career from the 1,500.
All 1,500 are now sold.
Yes.
I've sold them all. No. I think it just got word out, but I think the problem with when you get into real estate is you're like, okay, I have my license, and now what? You don't really know what to do. You don't just go sell a house. So it was just spreading the word that you're in business and telling everyone. The problem I had, which is why I was, this woman's assistant, is everybody knew I was 22. And they're like, oh, I remember when you were born, how are they going to trust you to sell their house? Right. So I said, oh, but I'm working with somebody else.
That's kind of how I started my career too. I mean, I looked like a baby when I first started,
right.
And this was similar time frame. I think I've been in about 20 years.
Right.
So I worked with Jonathan Taylor, and,
it helped to have his name.
Someone with
right.
experience who already had the
right.
name recognition.
Right.
Yeah. So you started Long and Foster. When did you transition? How many years were you with this agent? And when did you transition?
So I was with her from 2004 to 2009.
Okay.
My mom's best friend, I had to sell her house. And she said, why are you working with someone else? I know you and you've been proving yourself. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. So I said, I'll do it alone. So I did it alone. And then from then on, I did it alone. So 2009. And then in 2000... I think it was like 13, I went to Beasley. So I joke it's my Goldilocks story. I went from Long and Foster that had 12,000 agents to Beasley that had 10 agents.
10, yeah.
And then, so it was like too big, too small. And now I'm at Washington Properties with 130 agents.
Right. The tie-in, though, to mention Beasley in terms of like the DC real estate landscape, we had Jim Bell on. That Jim Bell, that was his brokerage.
Right.
That he started on his own, that later was eaten alive by Compass.
Right.
When Compass came to DC.
Right.
It was an impressive book of business that he had, because like with you and the other agents, like he
Well,
curated
he and Trent
like,
started it.
and really
Yeah.
good agents that like built up that brand, and like it was a very well
Yes.
firm for however many 2 or 3 years that you guys
Right.
were
So
doing
I was there for 3 years, and then there was one day that kind of everything went
south.
south, and Washington Properties called, and here we are.
There you are.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, okay, so Washington Pine Properties, how many agents are at Washington Pine Properties?
There's 130.
130 agents. So I'm looking at our sheet here. You're like the
Number
number
one.
You're the number one individual agent at Washington
Yes.
Pine Properties. That is no BS right there. That is like, that's excellent. Like,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
So how do you, so then as an independent agent though, I know you have an assistant, like how do you work as an agent on your own, like branding yourself? Who's on your team and how does that work?
So I joke that there's all these huge teams in real estate, you know, the whatever team, and you have 100 people in your team, and, you know, you send an email, some are well run, but
right.
some of them, you
Right.
send an email, like, you know, I go to sell someone's listing, I send an email, it goes to a black hole, and 4 days later I get 3 responses from 3 people on the team, and no one knows whose job is what. So I joke my team is at my house. I have 3 children, but I have 2 nannies. My husband's home, and that runs my team. So I don't do laundry, I don't do any of that, cooking, anything. When I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. But
Nice.
then at work, it's me. So I can answer the calls. Because I want to be able to control the work. I don't think I need to be doing the laundry. And so what I do is I have 2 people who work for me. One is Eric Tomlinson, who's amazing. He's been with me for 5 years.
He's kind of a veteran in the business a little bit, right?
So he's worked, I joke, he's worked for all these scary agents, and then he came to me. So everyone properly trained him, and he's incredible.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
We've done a
He's
couple
a
deals
great
with him.
guy. Yeah. He actually lives in the Dominican Republic right now. It's
Oh,
our,
really?
What?
It's our secret, yes.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but he'll be back. So his husband's in the Foreign Service.
Okay.
And in the State Department, sorry. And they're in Dominican Republic for 2 years. So they come back October. So Eric's been working, but it's been COVID. It doesn't matter, except when someone's like, hey, can Eric swing by and
show-
do
yeah,
something?
right,
I'm
yeah.
like, no. And then I have a runner who just does any signs, lock boxes, open
Sure.
doors, photographers, whatnot. But Eric does all the paperwork, the marketing, processing, everything, so
That's
that
pretty
I can
streamlined.
answer all the emails, calls, everything.
So like contract to close, Eric's doing that, or you doing?
Yes. No, Eric.
And then marketing he's doing, and then operation, is that your person or that's like the firm's person?
Mine, Eric.
Your,
Yeah.
yeah,
Eric's
wow.
amazing. Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And that's it. Just the 3. So Mark's a runner. He's part-time,
Mhm.
and then Eric's full-time in me.
Wow. So going back a little bit, because I followed your career, we've been around about the same. I think I've been
Right.
here for about 20 years. But your leap from Long and Foster to Beasley and then to WFP, just like you like blossomed. So I don't know if that's, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like from what are you doing, 20 or 40 million to where you are now? Because you've doubled, tripled your business over
Right.
a short time there.
So I always joke, I don't know, I work 100% on referrals. And so it's hard to know, like I always look at these people who have $10 million listings, and I'm like, how do you do that? You know, I don't really know how to make the leap. I think part of it is your clients get older and they have more money, and then they refer you different people. But I literally do everything from like 200,000 to multi-million.
Yeah, let's talk about this. I'm looking here. So, and I was putting this together last night as I was going on Homesnap, and like,
Yeah.
I think we all do this. Like,
Right.
we're like, you know, now what are they really doing?
Yeah. No,
No,
these
we-
are
we-
That's the
lies.
first thing I always do.
But we,
You think I'm
but, yeah,
lying?
and we don't know everything, but that's helpful to see
Yeah.
that. So
Most
you're-
people are lying, but mine are true.
so last year you 88 million in volume.
Yes.
Okay, 88 million in volume for an individual agent with one assistant and a runner is that's a lot of work.
Yes.
Okay, so and you said, and I was looking at the inventory or the listings and the sales. I mean, you have a kind of wide variety of stuff. I mean,
Yes.
there are some condos in there for like 200,000 or 300,000
Right.
mixed in with the other stuff. So That's a lot of hours of work.
Well, what's weird is I don't actually feel that busy.
Okay.
And I think I'm very organized, and I think that's the problem. Most people aren't.
Okay.
So, like, I'm putting a big house on the market in coming soon today.
Mm-hmm.
It was photographed a couple weeks ago. We had the floor plans. We had the brochures. Everything's been pre-approved. That literally after this, we're hitting send. You know?
Sure.
So I'm not last minute doing everything. Everything is organized, and I control it.
Well, that's okay. But we all have, we're in real estate.
Right.
I mean, there's always something that comes up that's
Yes.
out of the ordinary. It's going to take some extra phone calls. Like you could have this many deals going on at once. So I'm just curious, like, how do you manage those hours? It seems like a lot.
It's a lot.
I don't know. Somehow I do it.
Maybe
I still
maybe
I
you're
work out every day. I go out every night.
She might be a superhuman. We don't know. I don't know.
Somebody once said they wanted to bottle it up and go on the speaking circuit, but they couldn't figure out how. I don't really know. But I feel like I still have a social life. I do have 3 kids. You know, I still.
Yeah, if you have 3 kids, then you automatically
Yeah.
pressured into things.
But I don't know. I love it. I think it helps.
Mhm.
I did just turn down my first client ever.
Oh, wow.
So that was like a big moment for me. And it was actually, somebody called me to sell a house and they said, how many houses did you sell last year? And I said, 95. And he said, well, then you don't have time for me. And I said, well, I actually do have time. I took your call. You know, I'm happy to meet you later today. Like I felt like I wasn't jam packed. And so I had to convince him. But then I was like, you know what? I never turned down business, and I need to be able to say to people, well, I actually turned down business if it's not the right fit. So the next week somebody called and I could just tell she was going to be annoying. You know how you have those people who it's like,
Sure.
She scheduled the call for 8:00 at night, which I did. And then when I called her, she's like, my kids are still awake. Can we talk at 9? I said, fine. At 9, she called and she's like, oh, you guys work all the time. And I do work a lot, but I don't want it assumed. You know, like I'm willing to do it and I'm willing to work hard, but I don't want this like, you know, it felt like this edge. And then she wanted to know if I had any vacation planned in the next 6 weeks. And I've never been asked that question because I don't think my personal life is your problem. You know, I don't want to talk about it. I can handle things and you should trust me that I can handle it. So then she's like, well, I'm going to interview a bunch of agents and I'd like one more reference. And it came from her best friend. So of course I called a client who loves me and I was like, hey, you want to be a reference? She called her. And then she said, the client texted me. She said, this woman sounds like a handful. And I was like, well, I already had this feeling, but now I have it again, you know? So the woman says, great, sends me an email. Great news. We're working with you. And I wrote her back. I said, I'm actually having some doubts.
Oh, wow.
Which I couldn't believe I did, but I was actually really proud of myself because I'm like, this was going to be one of these people who's like last minute, 9:30 at night wants to go see a house. And like, I don't want to do that, you know? And I could just tell. So I said to her, so then she called. She said, well, can we talk? And she was begging me to take her. It was, you know, like now that I'd rejected her, it was. So then at that point, I was a
I love
sucker.
that, Brent. We got it.
I like that as well.
That.
You have to try it. So then
like,
she was
Refer
begging
to us.
me. Yeah.
We like headaches.
Well, I know you just did it for me. So she said, she's begging me. And so finally I said, okay, fine, I'll send you the paperwork. Because at some point I'm a human. So I sent it to her. And then a few days later, she's like, I think this is going to be too weird. I have since seen her on all these Facebook groups, like for moms in school, asking a million questions. And I was like, I made the right decision.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
Yeah. Like I knew it. It was like this tiny little house and I felt good about it. But now I'm like, I can tell people I don't work with people I don't want to work with.
Well, with that much experience that you have, you should definitely have the right intuition at this point. There's no question.
But I had never done it before in 18 years. So
it's got to be a good synergy between the client and the agent, because otherwise it goes south very quickly, especially in the market. It's hot, but it's like they're always going to be questioning, you could have gotten more money. Should I do it this way?
Or she would have like fired me in 6 months because I didn't do all her expectations because I went on vacation, you know? So it was like, I just felt like, you know what, I made the right decision.
But that raises a question though. So I'm not like needling you for being an individual agent, because it just seems like less and less people work this way now, as you may admit. But so like, let's say you do want to take like a real like significant vacation where you go away. So would you have another agent like sort of share in the?
Yeah, so I mean, I have Eric who will be back, obviously, and he's licensed and can do anything.
So, yeah.
I also, yeah, I mean, I have like I don't do Virginia. I don't go there.
So you'll refer
unless
business
I'm
for
on an
Virginia.
airplane,
Right.
right? So
Right.
I have 2 people who do Virginia. So, but they're also licensed DC, Maryland. So I could easily say, "Here's an agent I work with. Why don't you?"
Fair enough. Yeah.
You know, but
That's
I
the old
don't.
school.
I mean, I literally sold a house each time I gave birth in the hospital. I'm crazy.
That is crazy.
That happens. I don't know about you, Brent. Every time I'm away and like really trying to get away, that's when
Right.
The
Of
at
phone
course.
least
starts
one
blowing up.
transaction.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like
Can't
you're
plan it.
getting on the plane and someone's calling to ratify a deal, or you've got to DocuSign something, and you're going through the
Every time.
airport line. It's always
But you're
the case.
always you're constantly traveling to all of your houses across the country, so of course it's going to happen.
I
to you.
only stay on the East Coast, New York to Miami. I have just a couple other questions here along the same lines. The other thing I think is fascinating is you fly somewhat underneath the radar. Like you're not out there in all the glossy magazines and flyers and whatnot. As you mentioned earlier, you're like 100% referral base, which
Right.
is super impressive to me that, you're killing it. Like, what are you doing to your sphere that you're getting these clients back in? Are you touching them on a regular basis, magazines or what?
No, I mean, I think I'm like, I think I'm just normal. It sounds crazy, but you see these agents who are so flashy and fake. And me, it's like, we invite, friends over for dinner. Like the other day, my kid was at, there's a birthday party. It was on a Sunday. I swung by the birthday party. My husband took the kid. And then I always joke, people are like, what are you doing here on a Sunday? And it's like, you're going to tell me when you work 9 to 5, you don't take a lunch break? Like you're not allowed to be seen in
Right.
public. So I went by and then the client, I ran into like another parent and they're like talking to each other, like, we should talk to her, but we don't want to bother her at the birthday. And I said, okay, let's set up a call. We'll talk tomorrow. Now they want to buy a house. They were working with someone else, but they knew me as just like casual, whatever. It wasn't this scary, intimidating, thing.
Right.
And I think people we have a lot of friends. And so I love working with my friends. I think it just makes it's exciting to then go to the houses and see where they live,
Right.
that you sold them. I had 2 friends last week text me. They're like, I'm cleaning my house and thinking about how lucky I am that you sold it to us. Now, I don't know that a random client would send that text, but it's like a good friend
Yes.
who just
Yeah.
It's a good
randomly
feeling, too.
sent it. Great feeling. I was like, I love text messages like this.
So how are you reaching out? So you're obviously doing a phenomenal job getting them to sell their house or to find the house of choice. But after that, are you flyers, letters, handwritten notes that you mentioned? The
No,
1500?
so I send a baby gift anytime someone has a baby. And you see it on Facebook, people post a baby or you get it. So I always send a gift personalized. It's a bag with the baby's name on it. So those bags go everywhere. I see them for years. The mailings, I'll send like a Thanksgiving mailing, an end of year mailing. And then I try to send one like June, July when the stats come out
Right.
for the rankings. We'll post, on Facebook houses that are on the market, but I'm terrible at marketing. It's what I should be.
I
doing.
think
I'm so impressed.
I think her soundbite was like, she's normal.
She's
Yeah.
normal.
Just be normal, and maybe people will like you and hire you.
Right. It's
Right.
all paid propaganda, right? It's like, I'm the greatest. I'm going to put it in this magazine and that magazine and this newspaper, this social media outlet. It's all paid for by
Right.
us, where you're just normal. It's like,
No, I don't pay for that stuff. But you also like you were joking like you look on Homesnap. These agents are like top 1% of the company. And you look them up and you're like, you sold like 10
don't
houses
get me
in
started on
3
that.
years.
right.
And I was like, and the problem is the public actually believes you.
Well,
Social
the
media is
public does.
dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
We always joke like, who would you hire if you were hiring an agent to sell your house? Because
Right.
like we know all the differences about the
Yes.
agents. At the public, you're like, how did you hire that person?
I think there's just okay. So in terms of real estate marketing and marketing in general, and the way everything is now with media and social media, how many email blasts do you get a week? Like increase your followers 10,000 times. Like I get all these like blasts from just these other like e-marketing companies, and so it puts this pressure on the individual salesperson to be flashy or think that this is something that's important to them, whereas our job really isn't necessarily about that. It is more being human.
Right.
that's the job.
Right. It's just to be, and I think it's relatable. Like I just got somebody, they were interviewing multiple agents and she's like, I like that you have kids, you get it. Which is funny because that sometimes people are like, oh, you have kids, you can't work. And I'm like, no, I have like a system in place with my kids and it works. But like, I know how, you know, everything in my life's a schedule. Yeah.
So you're saying that you don't spend a ton of money on like major advertising. That's not really your forte. But are you doing other things like that are like specifically client focused, like client events or anything like that?
So pre-COVID, I had like once or twice a year I'd have a party.
Okay.
You know, at like rent out a bar type thing. Since COVID, no. But like our wedding was 350 people. I invited a lot of my clients, but I think that, you know, that's kind of, you want people to think they're your friends, and they are my friends. I don't mean it like that, but you know, they're like, oh, you should use Kira. She's a great friend of ours. We hang out and whatever. And then it's kind of this normal process versus, you know, trying to find an agent. I'm always surprised. Once, I think it's like 3 times last year, people found me on the internet and I'm like, I don't even know how you found me. You know, they Googled something and they found something, but it's rare. And so I think that's where, you know, I like to just, like our wedding, we invited a bunch of our friends, but they happen to also be clients. When we had babies, like parties for them, we invite them. You know, we have a pool, so we just like invite people over to swim, you know, but it's just, it's normal. We hang out, but they're our friends. They're not like, yeah, occasionally it'll be a client and then they become a friend. Right. But there are people, you know, I go to people's, I think showing up is like one of the biggest things.
Absolutely.
Any party you get invited to, you go, and, you know, someone once called it mandatory fun.
Yeah.
You know, the party will be fun, but like, it's probably not what you planned on doing that day because it's not, it's their housewarming party or their baby, whatever. And I go, and you go for half an hour, but you show up.
So obviously last year, huge year, you've had some great years here. But like not every year is like the best year for real estate, and we don't always have full control over the kind of flow of business that we have. Like tell us about a challenge like in your career, something that you may have overcome.
Well, fortunately every year's been better than the previous, but this market's insane, so who knows?
Before we were talking, you were mentioning the multiple offer situation and the frustration that you were having on that, which could be a challenge. So
I hate coming soon for more than 10 days. I hate it. I've called Mark Loam about it. I'm the rant on that one, because I think people put into coming soon and then they don't have pictures. They don't have anything about the house.
But they're stirring up all this.
They're stirring up this craziness, but then the buyers are, you know, holding out on other houses because maybe that house is amazing. And they're also, you know, I think it should be that you're not allowed to go to coming soon unless it's like a week or 10 days. Even less is fine. You have the photos, you have the floor plans, you have everything ready to go, and you don't allow showings. I also, what I told Brent before this is that I can't stand when agents say, okay, it's coming on this day and offers are due this day, and then they break their rule. Because I think my father's #1 line, which I totally follow, is integrity is not negotiable. And I think people, they change their plans and they lie or they forget about you. And it happened to me twice last week and I was pissed.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, it happens a lot. But what drives me nuts is I think about these sellers who think they're like, oh, I got 100,000 over asking. I did great. But the reality is if they waited 2 days or their agent had made one phone call, they could have gotten 250,000 over. You know, and so I think it's the wild, wild west out there right now.
So going back to, we were talking about how you're doing all this business. You seem to work a lot, and you'll show up for appointments. You'll make calls when you need to. What kind of organizational tools are you using to help with this? And you have Eric helping you on the side with a lot of these things. But like, how do you keep everything in front of you?
Outlook. My entire life is on Outlook, from like going on the Peloton to, you know, anything. Every single, like, plans at night, kids schedule, everything is on the Outlook, and my life is very scheduled.
So going into, like, do you have a CRM that you use?
I don't even know what that means.
Okay. So like your client birthdays, anniversaries.
So
all that.
anniversaries of their, so when we go under contract, we put the settlement date on and we put it on as an anniversary. So the next year it comes up, I reach out to them on the year mark, you know, happy 1 year, happy 2 year, every year.
Nice.
So I always do that. Birthdays, I'll see them on Facebook, and depending how well I know them, sometimes I'll call,
Right.
you know, sometimes email, sometimes nothing, you know, it kind of just depends.
Right. Phone calls are much more personal.
Yeah, I mean, you actually, the list of questions you wrote before, I think the number one thing for every agent is the phone. I am so over this texting everything. Phone or email. I try to avoid text if I can, unless it's I'm running 2 minutes late. But communicate.
Right.
I think that's the you know, you'll write an offer. There's 25 offers on the house, and the agent will send you a text like, "Hey, sorry you lost," and you're like, we spent all weekend showing it, pre-inspections, analyzing the offer, writing the offer, and you can't take 4 minutes to call me and say, "Hey, you came in third. What would have helped with the next offer is," you know, I always try to offer that information because it helps them with their next offer with their buyer.
That's an interesting, interesting thought, because we had that debate within our group last week. Exactly that. It's how do you handle the other 10 losers, so to speak, in a multiple offer situation. And I'm like, I just send an email. It's a very thoughtful email.
Thoughtful, right? You could do a thoughtful with like.
Kira's not having it.
No.
I'm not. No.
But I also like to get the email because that's something I can forward to the buyer.
That's true.
I can then call them before or after I send the email. I'm like, hey, we lost. Because like, there's a couple agents that have a really good write-up of the losers. And it's like, you were first, you were third, you were fifth. On like, these are the reasons why.
No, that
Not
helps.
just you lost.
Right. I mean, I got a text the other day that's like, sorry, we sold the house. And I was like, well, you knew
Right.
I was writing an offer. So I'm sorry for your sellers who didn't get a better offer, you know, but like, you just sent me a text message. I called her immediately. I was like, you know, this could have been a phone call.
Right.
So then when you're on the opposite side though, so like, let's say you have the hot listing that weekend.
Yeah.
Are you then you're making
I call
you're
every
making calls?
single person.
Even
And
if you have like 37 offers.
I don't care.
you're
They spent 4 days getting me an offer. I can't spend 4 minutes calling them.
Interesting. Max, what about you?
Mostly emails, you know, if it's that many. And it
But
also
it's like, what is it, an hour and you're getting paid a huge commission?
No, it's not even about that. It's just like I don't know about you, Brent, but it's like if you make the phone call and then you get the agent on the other line and they have a bunch of follow-up questions, the answer is still the same.
Right.
So I just don't, those are uncomfortable situations. I'm not saying I'm against uncomfortable situations. I've got
No,
plenty.
I get it. I call once it's
You're very
ratified.
direct.
Yeah, I don't, it's funny. Someone said to me that they said, I referred you out and I told them that you'll tell somebody not to buy a house. And I like your honesty, but somebody might find that abrupt. And I was like, no, because I want the listing when you go to sell. And if I sell you a crappy house, I don't want to sell
Yeah,
it.
it's coming back.
So I was like, there was a house recently, my clients were like, we love it. I was like, you cannot buy this house. There were like 25 offers on the house. And she thanked me because it went up like some crazy number that they could have paid, but like it was a horrible house.
Smart. I like it.
Well,
Yeah.
That's today's market though. They're all going. So.
I know they're all going, but I don't know. I think phone calls are really nice. I think it helps give information. But I guess if it's a thought out email, it's probably fine too. I also
we're
call
not trying
my
to sell you on the
clients.
email. We're just
I know, but do you call your clients when they lose?
It depends on what time of day it is or what situation is and how many they've lost.
Yeah.
You know, how many times we shared this information together.
Yeah.
I've got one client right now who we've lost 3 in a row, and it's like, what can we do out here?
Yeah.
Really, we're gonna keep going.
Right.
But you know, she's not. I don't think she's expecting any more than a text like, "Hey."
I once years ago, someone's like, you know, we were really sad we lost that house, and you didn't send flowers the next day. I was like,
That's
what?
weird.
That's
like
crazy.
that was crazy to me. So that was kind of where I got the part where I'm like, okay, it's a bigger deal to them. Like we do this all the time, so you
Right.
got to remember.
Yeah, that's true.
Know.
No, it's true.
I still don't send flowers.
Well, I will say this, that for the clients who are, it's very situational. They're looking for a house, earnestly looking for a house for their family to move into, and it's just not happening. There's not enough of them.
Right.
And there's plenty of empathy is shared here.
Right.
Because they're stuck.
Right.
And it's kind of, it's embarrassing in our world, because it's like, how is this possible that we live in a place where we can't find them a house at this price level even? It's just
there was a week recently that there were 3 of us who all sell a lot of houses, and combined that week we'd written 11 offers and only 1 had gotten through. And I was like,
yeah,
that's crazy, because these are not people who don't know how to write winning offers. It's just this market is insanity.
Yeah.
But like, I had 2 people who lost hard last week, and I called them a couple days later. I was like, I just want to check on your well-being. And they were so appreciative. They said, well, I lost sleep for like 3 days, but now I'm feeling good. I was like, all right, I said, it's like a breakup. You just pick up and move on. We'll get the next one, you know?
Sure.
So, I mean, that's sound advice. What else are you doing to combat the crazy market? I mean, if you see like, you know, a bad company lists a great property in a hot neighborhood, are you kind of like dancing around it because you know they're going to play games, or how do you handle situations like that?
I mean, sometimes I'll play any game, but sometimes your game is different. You know, if it's a bad company, you know it's not going to be handled properly. We were talking about early, like when there's a deadline and then someone shoves an offer in. If you do that on someone who's not a very good agent, sometimes it'll work, and sometimes they'll just screw you around. So I'll say to my client, like, hey, we can try, but be aware we might get played all weekend. Mm-hmm. And then we can just resubmit on Monday if they don't, you know, write a different offer. So I think it just kind of, I always tell people I've done almost every scenario, but I don't know which way you'll land, but I can probably figure it out, you know? So
do you have people that will ask you the question, how high would you go on this offer? And what do you tell them?
So I will never tell people how much to pay for a house, because I don't want to be called when you think you overpaid.
Right.
So what I tell people is bid to the price where if I called you, like, let's say a house is 1.5. If I called you and told you someone else paid 7 for it, would you be pissed? And if they're like, I'd be livid. I'm like, okay, so 1.7 is not your number. What about 1.8? Oh yeah, I'd be fine. Like, I'd be disappointed, but I'd be fine. Okay, so 1.8. So we're somewhere between there. And then we just like kind of play the game. And they're like, well, I'm somewhere between 1.75 and 1.775. I'm like, all right, let's do like 1.6769. You know, like I just kind of work them to get to the number where they're like, okay, if we lost it, we're okay with it. Because if we're paying that price, I would have rather had a 2-car garage. You know, at some point you need to like reevaluate what you can get at that higher number.
Right.
Which is what's crazy with this market. And
it's hard to supply comps because it's like
there
comps from
no
like
comps.
3 months or 6 months ago, they're already outdated.
No, there was a meme the other day that says like, the comps show me you're not going to get the house.
Right, yeah.
Because it's like, right, you can study comps all you want. It doesn't matter if someone needs a house, they're going to pay for it.
Right.
Well, it sounds really similar to what Brent was saying when we were discussing multiple offers, was the like it, love it, or leave it. I mean, you just have to leave it up to the buyer to decide what those numbers really are. And sort of like,
right. The other thing I always say to them, I'm like, we didn't know about this house last week. So like, what's coming next week?
Right.
You know, at some point, just like, this was the hot one for the week, but like, you always end up in the best house for you.
Right. What's meant to be will be.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that.
So I think the hardest part is telling our buyers just to be patient. Don't get so caught up in the bidding frenzy that you overpay and you're pissed, 2 years down the road. Like the right house will come to you when it's the right time.
Or when people settle.
Right.
That's the worst, when they're like, whatever, any house. And I'm like, no.
I've had the occasional client though who really doesn't have much emotional like connection with the whole real estate thing.
Right.
It's kind of
engineer. Were they an engineer?
I don't recall exactly, but it's like I found that really impressive. Yeah. You know, that because most people really do want to connect emotionally with where they're about to sink some money and live.
Yeah.
Right?
It is such a weird concept.
Right?
Yeah.
What kind of advice, you've given a lot of good advice. I think your best advice today, or just talking about yourself, it just is that being normal is a huge difference maker for you. But what kind of advice would you give to younger agents who are talking about starting out in the business? It's a very competitive market. If they were moving into this area or any other major urban area, what kind of advice would you give?
I think there's a few things. I think one, you should be professional. And I think this is, I always dress professionally. You'll never see me in like yoga pants at a birthday party because you never know who you're going to meet. And so I'm always dressed. I joke my favorite outfit's a blazer. You know, other people are like, oh, I'd rather be in sweatpants all day. Not me. But I think it's always be dressed because you don't know what's gonna, or you get a call, can you run and see this? You don't want to have to go home and shower, you know? And I see some of these agents out there in like t-shirts and jeans, and you're like, you're trying to sell a $4 million house looking like that. Like, do not take yourself seriously.
I'm in the same school. I just, this is.
Right. You're always dressed. Yeah. And so I think you respect your profession. I think it's also, and part of it just comes with age. I remember when I started, I was 22, and I kept saying, once I'm 30, people will respect me, you know, because 22 is young, you know, and to sell like this huge house when you're 22 years old. And so I think it gives you, you know, the older you get, the more confident you are, but you also, people respect you as the professional in your career. But I also, and I tell this to people, I hire experts to do things in my life. Like, I had a wedding planner, I had a doctor deliver my baby, I go to a dentist, I do all these things. And so you want to be the expert in the field, and don't let the client convince you that they know the market better, even though they've read a book or they've, you know, sold 2 houses and you haven't sold any. And then the other thing I think is being very organized. You know, I am very, and along those lines, it's like, if I have a haircut set at, you know, 4 o'clock, I don't tell anyone I have a haircut. Like, I am shocked what agents tell me. They're like, oh, sorry, I'm putting a kid to bed, so I'll call you later. And it's like, I don't care what you're doing. You can't call me now, you know? So if you have like a haircut at 4, it's an appointment. It doesn't matter what appointment it is. It's an appointment, and you're not moving it. And when people ask to see a house, I say, give me 3 times that work. So instead of them saying, oh, I can do 2 o'clock today, and then I have to decide whether to move that appointment, I just say, okay, 2 doesn't work, you know, but I'll meet you at 3.
That's
so
smart. Give me 3 times that work for you.
I always do 3 times. The initial phone call, give me 3 times that work for you. Because sometimes they're like 8:30 at night, 7 a.m. or noon. And you're like, okay, I'll do noon.
Yeah.
But other times it's like, if they can only do night. Like, someone called the other day and he's like, hey, can you meet me at 6:30 at our house to sell it? Now, I know he has 2 children. You know what children is like at 6:30 at night.
It's not a good time.
It's just like, first of all, I'd rather be at my house at 6:30, but I'm also not going to turn down business. So I could be at your house. I do have help, you know. And so I said to him, but you know, I feel like 6:30 is probably not going to be good for you. You're going to be trying to feed your kids, and I'm going to get both of your attention. So let's find another time. So we found another time, you know. But I think that's where agents, especially when you're brand new, you just jump on whatever the other person offers, but you haven't really like tried to control the schedule. And I think it's a way to control the schedule.
I think I'm usually too direct. I give the direction. I'm like, you can have this time or that time.
Right.
It's usually like morning,
not bad
or like
either, though.
Afternoon.
That works too, but it's not this like, and it also cuts back on emails.
Yes.
Because you could have 100 emails like, hey, can you meet me at 1? No. How about 1:30? No. Okay, actually 2. No. You know, and instead it's like, give me 3 times and I'll pick
That's
1.
good.
And if I can't go, I can always send my runner who can open a door. And I'll say, I could meet you at this time, but if you really want to go at that time, I can send a runner and you can pick which one. He's
Right.
licensed. He knows what he's doing.
Well, I got that same advice a long time ago from a lender when I was a young agent, about like you're talking about someone telling you like, oh, I have a hair appointment. It's like,
Right.
it's just kind of rude in
It's
a certain way.
Right.
It's like, it's a personal thing or whatever it is.
Right.
It just can't happen at that time. That is okay.
Exactly.
We're all busy people. But
Right. I'll give you 20 hours of the day. I don't need to give you 24.
so
Like,
yeah, it's like today I was a little late to this recording because I had another thing scheduled before this, and there's other things happening
Right.
outside of here. But it's like, the
I
only thing
don't-
I can do
yeah.
is like say, I'm sorry, I'm a little late. Like there's so many, you guys were
right.
here.
Right. And
So-
everyone has something going on. So I always find it shocking when people are like, the other day, the agent's like, I have to do this, this, and this. And I wanted to be like, okay, so you have 1 child and who's 7 in school, and you're going to tell me, and you sell like 4 houses a year.
You have 1 listing live.
And you have 1 listing live.
I saw you on Homesnap.
And I
Right.
saw you on Homesnap. And you're going to tell me you're busy because I can guarantee you I'm busier, but I'm still here. You know, and it was like, because you don't schedule properly, you know, or you leave early, or you like, I just figure it out. But I'm very crazy with my calendar.
That's amazing. I do want to give a shout out to Homesnap because I think that it's
Right,
a
I
great
was about to
tool.
say.
It's like anybody calls me and gives me slack on something, the first thing I do is go to Homesnap and be like, all right, have they done more than like 10 deals in the last year? That's kind of like my cutoff. I'm
So
like,
My brother will appreciate it. He worked for Homesnap in the beginning, and he told me, and I was like, this is such BS. Like, we don't need another whatever. And he's like, no, I tell you it's different. I'm like, it's not. Like, and I gave him such a hard time because I'm just so sick of like everyone thinking they know more. And Homesnap is amazing.
Homesnap's awesome.
It's awesome. Like every house you pull up, you're like, oh, and like you have the neighborhood. You don't have to pull comps, the history, the everything. And so I finally called him like a few late. He was already gone from there, but I called him and I was like, all right, you were right. Like Homesnap's great. You can spy on all these loser agents.
Exactly.
Who, like, claim they have all these numbers that are just not true.
I even used it down to the fact that if I pull up Max's stats, I can see like his listing to sold ratio is like 97% or what. It might be higher than that. But it's like, so I can tell the consumer, like based on history, if he's got something listed at $1 million, he could probably come in at about 950 and then get up to 970. You can see historically.
Or he can just tell that person, he's like, you don't want to list with him because it's always 97%. We're 105%.
Exactly.
Well, I just had to fight so hard for this listing, and the woman actually said to me, these were two things. So it was her grandmother's house who died. It was her mother, who's kind of involved, but in her 70s, and then the granddaughter. So she says, well, you know, I don't like real estate agents, but you seem cool. And I was like, okay, that's crazy that you feel you can say that to me, but okay. And then she said, and my mother hates women real estate agents. And I was like, well, it's 2022. So I said to her, well, I'm the #1 in my company. So if you would like me to send you a man, I can, but he will be ranked lower. That kind of pushed her off. But she was pushing me against an agent hard. Another agent, and I finally pulled him up, and I was like, all right, like I don't even know how to tell you this, but like look what he has sold in 2 years and look what I have sold in 2 years, and like you can tell me whatever you think, but like this is true.
Right.
And I got the listing and I sold it last week in 4 days. Thank you.
It's a good one though, because I've been in that situation too, and I'm like, now who are you talking to?
Right.
And I go look, and I'm like, how do I say this?
I know.
Right? Because you don't want to be disparaging to your other professionals.
People, yeah.
Right.
I said, look, this is a little bit awkward, but we do have this app that we can like check people out, and here's what I got.
I like it.
I think on a few occasions I've done like my Homesnap and then the agent B's Homesnap, and I can merge them together, and it's like one photo that goes across. It's like, you know, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. It's like, here's ours, here's theirs.
Right, but like back to the marketing thing you were saying is, somebody said to me like, oh, this agent sells like 250 houses a year. And I was like, okay, but have you seen their team photo? Because there's 22 people in that picture. So if you actually do the math, they like sell 10 million.
There's nothing more irritating to me than the social media spin. Because I'll be at the gym and I'll have people come up to me and say, wow, so-and-so is killing it. Like, why can't you guys do as much as he's doing? And I'm like, he did 20 million last year.
Right.
I'm like, it's just based on like what they saw.
Like, I've done that since January.
Right.
Yeah, we don't. Well, at the end of the year, our company does the, you know, so-and-so awards.
Right.
But for the most part, the whatever you want to call it, the
ranking,
the ticker, like over the course of the year, as we all know, everything averages out over time,
of course,
and over the years, and it's like we can all talk about some pretty incredible. I mean, the better agents can talk about some pretty incredible numbers for the last couple of years.
Right.
That's just where we are.
Right.
You know.
It'll be interesting to see what happens this year and if people get weeded out.
I'm sure it's always like this.
Right.
We have an extremely hot market. We have a lot of people like coming into the market, looking for market share. There's certainly not enough inventory to go around for even the top agents right now. So yes, that's a natural progression.
Yeah, no, I just had a listing that they wanted it off market, which I'm not a believer in. I think everything should hit the market. Dana Landry always makes fun of me because I want my buyers to buy off market, but my listings to go on the market. And he's like, you're not consistent. I said, I am. I represent the client. Like the buyer should buy off market. The seller shouldn't. And they just wanted private. And I said to them, the top agents right now, we're losing in so many bidding wars. They're going after listings. So I said, you need to find like a mid-level agent with the buyer and hit the market, found a mid-level agent. Not somebody I would have called in the 2 months I had it privately listed, and I sold it for like way over asking.
That's interesting.
Right.
That's smart.
But I think it's true because people will work with anyone as a buyer's agent because they don't know. Listings, it's like you want the top. But
we're always talking about this in our office is we're getting calls from, you know, for some of these listings, very high-end listings.
Right.
and they're people we've never heard of.
Exactly. That's what this happened.
And we go on Homesnap, and I'm like, yeah, that person definitely, they sell like $300,000 houses outside of Baltimore or something.
Right, but it's their aunt or somebody buying a house. Right, that's what I had. I had 7 showings that first day, and I had never heard of 6 of them.
I think that's a product of the current environment, though. I just got back from Inman, and some of the top agents were up on the stage talking about that exactly, where they did 400 million last year, but they expect to do like 150 because there's not enough inventory. And for the most part, consumers think that our job is very easy. They don't know the behind the scenes.
Right.
So they'll call any lister to put their home on the market. And even the buyers, they get frustrated. They missed out on 2 and they think it's your fault, not my fault, that I'm losing out on these offers. And then I'll go to somebody else. So I mean, it's across the country, not just like local.
Well, I just had a buyer who insisted on writing a full price offer with contingencies on every house in the market. So we can know how that's going. And finally, I said to them, I'm confident you're not going to be able to get a house. I mean, in this, like, this is crazy. Finally, we write on a house in Potomac. The agent who's listing it is a rental agent. He called me. He goes, you won. I was like, really? And he's like, why are you surprised? I said, I don't know. Anyway, I won full price with all the contingencies in place. And he doesn't know the market.
Yeah.
And so he totally left money on the table and has like not a perfect offer.
Right.
But
good for you.
Yeah.
Well, it took like 6. I was so like, I'm so sick of writing these offers. You know, like, you just keep losing.
Well, you gave the buyer the advice you needed to. You said this is not going to work. Right. But you did the job.
Totally. Yeah, no, we're ratified closing soon.
There you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think we got some great stuff, Kira.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. So
Powerhouse. I like it.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
a
you.
normal powerhouse. So Brent's going to hit you with some rapid fire questions.
All right.
Rapid 5. What is your favorite TV show?
I don't watch TV.
Don't watch TV.
Now you don't wait. Now, let's quantify this. You don't like the TV's never on. Like your husband's not watching a show.
He watches TV. He says that the #1 complaint he has about marrying me is that we don't watch TV or movies. So he does it on his own or with his friends.
Oh wow. Well, that's all the questions we have. No, just kidding. So, what's the last concert you went to see live?
Last concert.
Could be back in college.
Switching these
days,
questions
high
up.
school.
I know. I'm gonna say I don't. We saw Adele at one point.
Oh, you did?
Nice.
Yeah, that was good.
I like Adele.
Janet Jackson.
She's good too.
Yeah, these were all like in a couple of years. It's been a while because of COVID.
You haven't done any concerts since like things started opening up lately?
No, we still have unvaccinated children, so it's like opening up ish.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
White or red wine?
Ooh, all. I love my wine, but probably red. Bordeaux.
Favorite restaurant in the city? DC.
Favorite restaurant. And it used to be the Rigsby. We live next door to the Rigsby, but it's gone. We used to call it our kitchen. We ate there 3 times a week. Now, I don't know
Where do the kids like to go?
Nowhere. We have a kid with allergies. We like Blacks, but that's stuff.
Blacks?
Yeah, it's easy. Downtown, we like, I don't know, all the good ones have closed.
Yeah, they have. Do you have any books that you'd recommend, like a go-to book?
I tell you, I like work, have children, and drink wine.
Work?
Go out to dinner. Books. When I started in real estate, I read all the Tom Hopkins books. I don't even know if he's still relevant, but I think they're good books.
Last question here. Any predictions for the rest of 22? We talked about multiple offers. Do you think it'll continue for the rest of the year?
I think it will do the same thing that I felt last year, which is it was crazy around now, and then it kind of slowed down because buyers either got sick of the bidding wars or sellers got greedy. And when they got greedy, I felt like the bidding wars weren't as crazy. And I'm starting to see that, which makes me happy.
Sounds good. Kira, thank you so much for coming on and joining us today.
My pleasure.
Now, we always like to give a donation to the charity of your choice. Do you have a charity you'd like to give a shout out to?
Gift of Life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bone marrow registry.
Mm-hmm.
We instead of gifts for our wedding or any of our kids, we asked for donations, and we've raised like over $100,000.
Oh, wow.
So they give bone marrow transplants to people struggling with blood cancers.
Amazing.
You got it.
Thank you, Kara.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.